Thank you for taking the time to join the RISD Alumni in Architecture and Design group.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So just a quick introduction of our alumni volunteer group and our presenters who are here. And then Leslie, you want to start us off?
Hi, I'm Leslie Saul, graduated BFA in 76 and BArch in 77, which is almost my age at this point. I mean, I'm younger than that, but not quite much. Um, and we are going to just to prepare everyone. When you introduce yourself, we're looking for one thing that you love to do at RISD. Think back. Our fresh grads don't have to think back that far, but some of us have to think back a little bit. Like, what did we really love doing when we were at RISD?
So what was yours since you started us off?
I loved hanging out in the nature lab, which hopefully we still have the nature lab. There's a lot of stuff that's changed since then, but yeah.
Great. And you are in Boston?
And I'm in Boston.
All
Yeah.
right. I'll go next. I'm Shiva Mendez. I am the Behavioral Health Practice Leader at HOK here in San Francisco. I graduated BFA in 91, Bachelor of Interior Architecture in 92. And highlight of my freshman year was 3 p.m. coffee and peanut butter cookie at the car house and museum open nights. So, Rubelcy.
Hey everyone, my name is Rubelcy. I am a 2025 BArch grad. Um, Currently in New York, originally from Providence, Rhode Island. Whoop. And I would say I think one of the things I miss is the 1 a.m. munchies with all my friends, getting like we're like all laughing at like how screwed we are because tomorrow's like midterm or finals, but we're like laughing about it as we're eating. So I kind of miss um those moments.
All right. Rubelcy starting us off the presenter. So, Aysenur, you want to go next?
Yes. So hi everyone. It's really exciting to be here again. Um, my full name is Aysenur and I just go by Nor, which is the end of my name. It's just easier. And I graduated last year from Masters of Architecture. And what was my favorite? Was that the question moment
Mhm.
that I missed? I think it might be just
What you miss most?
I feel like I'm missing a lot of things. It was a fun time. It was difficult but fun. But it might be just like the quick walk to Dave's to just grab a coffee as fast as possible. Um, yeah. Am I missing anything else?
And where are you now?
Oh, I'm in Istanbul, which is where I'm from. Um,
Awesome.
yes.
What time is it there?
It is.
Late at
It's
night.
almost midnight. Yeah.
And she
Thank
wanted to go last. I don't know why.
I did, but I think I'm gonna be the first,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
We're gonna
I
make you go.
mean, I don't know. Like I think both of them is a bit difficult. Going first is kind of like a bit terrifying, could be. I don't know.
Uh, that was my thing at all the creds. I was like, go first and get it over with.
People who's next.
Corey, you want to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Corey Watanabe. I'm a 2024 grad from the RISD Masters in Landscape Architecture program. Uh, and yeah, so I'm currently based in Somerville right now, Somerville, Mass. And one thing I miss the most is probably, yeah, spending a lot of time in just all of the beautiful landscapes in Rhode Island, like all the beaches, the RISD farm, some marches, and being there with like my classmates and also just like being inspired by them to make things. So yeah.
And Rim?
Hello, I'm Rim. My full name is Yerim, and I go by with Rim. And currently, I'm working at HOK San Francisco in same office with Shiva. And I graduated 2025, and I moved to San Francisco, which is a crazy move, but I'm loving it. And I graduated from interior architecture, Master of Interior Architecture. And the favorite thing I did in RISD, it's in 1 a.m. making a physical model time in the studio. Like at that time, people got crazy and we just played the music and we're just chit-chatting and dancing and singing while we were making a model. That's the best memory that I have.
Great.
Thank
And
you.
looks like we have Josh. So Josh, can you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're at and what you miss most about RISD.
Where is Josh?
I know I just got a text that we got him. So
Oh, he's down here. Yeah. Yeah, folks, you can unmute yourself so that we can.
Josh, can you hear us? There we go.
Hi.
Tell us where you're at and what you graduated in and what you miss about RISD.
Hi. I'm from the architecture department and I graduated in the spring. I'm currently studying in London at Central St. Martin's, pursuing my master's of fashion design. I definitely miss living in Providence and just the entire life of being a student at RISD. And I actually miss like the morning lectures in the BEB. Yeah.
Wow. That's a look forward to the outcome of an architecture and fashion design
You are not the
education.
first. Actually, I think Dries van Noten from Holland, Dutch designer. He studied architecture before he became a fashion designer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And some other designers like Virgil Abloh studied architecture at the Illinois Institute of Technology, and I think Tom Ford as well.
Oh yeah, Tom Ford.
Oh,
Right.
educated. All right. We are up to 28 people. So we have 20, at least 20 alumni that have joined us. I don't know if you want to do a quick round robin before we get in so that you know who your audience is.
Yes, if you can turn on your cameras and unmute, that would help it go faster and we'd see you.
And I'm just going to go by the names that I see on the screen and a random order by my screen. So Adele.
Okay. My name is Odell Richardson. Graduated BFA in 79. Probably, I mean, I have to really search through the fog to figure out what I missed from RISD, but I guess my biggest memories are the international friends. We formed kind of a group, and we would have massive debates about architecture in the world outside the US. So I learned a lot of things, and that I miss that. And I miss my friends. A
And
couple have passed on. I'm sorry.
where are you located now?
Oh, I'm located now in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I think we did this last year and I didn't remember it. Leger?
Gray.
Leger.
Gray. It's kind of weird. It's a Charleston thing. Yeah, I graduated BFA in 81, architecture, Bachelor of Architecture in 82. And I'm currently living and working back in Charleston after Boston, New York, Chicago. I'm back in Charleston again.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Miss Randy up there on
the Scott?
Hey, good morning. Scott McDonald. I have a MLA from 2011 from RISD. I miss AS220, Graduate Open Studios, RISD Beach. Yeah, That's what I miss.
Awesome.
Oh, and I'm in Seattle, and I work in public art and cultural planning.
Wow.
Yeah, City of Bellevue, it says on your list.
I can't figure out how to change that, but yeah.
Yes, all right, great.
You can do a tutorial after. I'll show you how.
Yeah.
I was telling someone about the pancake shop in Bellevue the other day. Uh, Sandy, are you with us?
Is that Sandy Fishbein?
It's just Sandy, I don't know. All right, we'll go to the next screen, maybe come back. Margaret? Oh,
Hello, I'm Margaret Kalajian. I live in Boston or outskirts of Boston. I graduated MArch 2018. I think most I miss in general BEB, but more particularly making models.
ah,
Yeah. And
all right.
perhaps being more involved with RISD. I miss a lot of the friends I made.
Yeah.
Awesome. Deb, do we need to introduce you and say hi?
Hi, I'm Deb Dormady. I'm the Affinity Groups Officer with the Alumni and Family Relations Department. Thank you all for being here today. Feel free to keep going, Shiva.
All right. Jason Bregman?
Good afternoon, Jason Bregman with Michael Singer Studio and Michael Singer's Foundation in Delray Beach, Florida. Graduated RISD in 2002 with a Bachelor's of Landscape Architecture, Bachelor's of Fine Arts. I met Michael Singer at RISD, hunted him down at the Innovation Studio, and I ended up running his studio, and now I run his foundation. So also with another RISD colleague, Jonathan Fogelson from Industrial Design. And we also have a large studio in Southern Vermont, Wilmington, Vermont.
Nice.
Miss working in the studio late at night during the days with all the people there. I spent a lot of time working alone in office spaces and on job sites and stuff like that. So our colleagues are spread out. So I miss having everybody together. And that was great at RISD, which I don't have as much now. Nice to meet you all. Thanks.
Nice to meet you. Huachin Chen? I don't know if I got that right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm Huaching. I was graduated at RISD Interior Architecture Department in 2021. My major was adaptive use, and I've been practicing in Boston ever since. The thing I miss most also nature lab and hang out with friends at RISD Beach. I'm not sure which one is the real RISD Beach, the lawn or the real beach.
The lawn.
I was talking about the real beach, the one with Wi-Fi. Yeah, also like I miss like napping with my friends on the first floor of our building. There's a lot of like I don't know, like couch beans.
Bean bags.
Yeah.
Awesome. Randy?
Hey, how are you? Coming to you from Chicago today. Bachelor of Fine Arts, Bachelor of Architecture in 1990. Most recently, the Global Healthcare Design Director for Gensler. I absolutely miss late night runs to Haven Brothers and the Silver Truck. Sustained me. And my son is actually a senior in painting this year at RISD, and I've got my other 15-year-old son here with me too, who wanted to know what the heck I was doing down here with you guys. So thanks.
Great. Fong?
Hi, not an alumni. I'm actually a freshman. I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. But I'm going into architecture. I just wanted to drop in and see what you guys are all about, you know.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. Hopefully it won't scare you. Say, Kim.
Hi, I'm Cetin, BArch 07. Been all over the world. Was in Boston for 10 years, Switzerland for a year now, right now. And I'm in New Jersey, was in New York for a couple of years. And currently I'm a principal at a CBT Architects who is headquartered in Boston, actually. And I just happen to be the anomaly that's not in Boston anymore. I moved out 4 years ago, I think. Favorite memories from RISD, I would say, are the late nights, the energy, the activity that happens. People, friends, colleagues showing their true self late night. And I think I love that aspect, and not just at RISD, but also the various firms that I've been at. It's always the late nights that I think are the most memorable and painful at the same time. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Deborah Strong.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I graduated from RISD in 2022, got a Master of Architecture degree, and after that, practiced in Boston area. Yeah, and now in Boston, and looking forward to like transferring into healthcare design and looking for new opportunities. Licensure, yeah, and memories of RISD Museum, the 15 West, the library, the portfolio, and also the BB studio. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, also the awesome professors, friends, and also interdisciplinary design. Yeah.
Thank you. Yuan Chen.
Hi, I'm Yuan. I graduated in 2014, Master Architecture. Now I'm working in Gensler, DC. So what I miss most is the furniture studio. I can use now because now I have my own home. I know what I need, but I just don't have access to those workshop anymore. And I also miss the Thai restaurant. I don't know if it still exists there, the Pakaran. I miss the drunken noodles so much.
See you, Yuan.
Hi, Randy.
All right. Marta, you want to say hi? She's our coordinator today.
Hi, everyone. I'm the RISD project coordinator. I work with Deb. I'm also an alum. I graduated in painting, MFA in painting 2 years ago. I'll be in the background just monitoring things. Good luck.
And I don't know if Sandy's joined us back. Sandy, if you can hear me, you can introduce yourself.
Unmute. And if everyone who hasn't spoken yet can unmute, that would make things faster. And if you have show us your face, that would be fun.
All right, maybe we're on hold on a call. So Karis Lam.
Hi, I'm a current student. I'm a sophomore in architecture at RISD.
Thank you.
Welcome. Oh. And we have an iPhone 8. I don't know who that is. Okay. Thank you all. Before we start, just want to make sure that some of our presenters are presenting from their own laptops. So if we hit any sort of technology hiccups, apologies in advance. Otherwise, we're just here to see what's been happening in the studios recently and the degree projects of our recent grads. And at the end, there will be time for you to ask questions of them or for them to get some advice from the alumni network. So we've sort of give them each 10 minutes and we'll play a little bit of a timekeeper to give everybody the opportunity to present. So Aysenur, since she's in Istanbul, we're gonna let her go first and go from there.
All right. Okay, here it is. So I'm just gonna start since we already did introduction. And can everyone hear me? Everything is all right, right? Okay, perfect. Okay. So today I will be talking about my thesis, which is called Living Heritage. Oh, oops. Okay. All right. So I just want to quickly read a paragraph to kind of tie everything together. The thesis argues that the Golden Horn walls, once vital defensive and urban boundaries of Byzantine and Ottoman Istanbul, can be reactivated as meaningful public spaces through respectful, reversible interventions. Despite their layered history and cultural importance, these walls have been neglected, absorbed into the urban fabric, and often overlooked. Okay. And here's a picture to showcase how the wall used to be parallel to the inlet, which no longer exists in this section of the silhouette. And it is important to talk about the history of the walls because they are over 1600 years old. And there are many smaller ones, but the main ones are the land walls, Golden Horn walls, and the sea walls. It is important to know these three as well because the land walls and the sea walls have been preserved a lot better than the Golden Horn walls. And to be able to understand the Golden Horn walls, I had to rely on the drawings and the archives of the land walls. For example, these drawings. Since they built together, they share a lot of common things. And one big thing about these Golden Horn walls that they were used by the public quite often, and this created these urban assemblies that are quite unique. And people built their houses on top of them, near them, adjacent to them, and created this unique urban fabric that belongs to the city of Istanbul. I made these three study models. It was also a material study to be able to understand this urban assemblies further. And I used wood, plaster, concrete, wires, also dusts to create these textures and to understand how they belong together, come together, and told an abstract story. Another important thing was, this is a picture from the land walls. It is protected by, it is part of UNESCO World Heritage, so they are protected. It's almost shows a time, frozen time, but the Golden Horn walls they kept on living and accumulating. And it was interesting. And I started to ask this question, like, who decides which one to protect? Like, which one holds more history, more story? The one that frozen in time or the one that continued to accumulate history? And it was a quite important question for my thesis. This is the quarter of the map that I did. The red ones are the remaining walls. The yellow lines are just the traces of the ones that no longer exist. And it was important to see it this way as well, to understand how much of the history that was lost. And there are many reasons. Due to earthquake, neglect from the government, also due to usage of the public. And another reason is that they made a lot of construction amnesties that legitimized the usage of these walls, and it left them quite scattered around the city. I want to share some examples of their current situation. And most of the time, they just pick through these structures. Like I said, apartments were built on top of them. Even there are cafes that are on top of these walls and their outdoor space as well. Another pretty interesting thing that I realized quite late, actually, I don't know why, is these interesting structures that were built inside the towers of these walls. So the public, like I said, used these walls and put their own meaning and functions to them. And we see concrete slabs, steel structures, concrete columns that were poured. And it is really interesting how when it is not preserved, public start to use them, and it just feels like this natural process of heritage. It continues to grow and evolve, and it was fascinating for me because more often we see these artifacts just frozen and belonging to another period, but these are lived. The wall almost acts like a binder between accumulated history, and it's rooted on the urban fabric. And I also did drawing studies to further understand, because looking at a picture is one thing, but drawing it is another. So it was also an important process for me to understand. And obviously, I continued to ask, okay, what type of study I can do, what type of, what is moving forward for me in the question, the urban strategies and the interventions, what do I need to do? And I decided to use lightweight, non-invasive still structures, and I'm just going to read this real quick. So the project proposes a new architectural language that preserves the integrity of the past while offering adaptable spaces for contemporary public use. This approach bridges conservation and transformation, positioning the walls not as a frozen object, but as a living infrastructure open to evolving with the public life itself. And I put some of my drawings here. I mean, it is hard to talk about them because they're quite detailed, but I chose one of the towers, and my design proposal was the vessel, a framework that is modular and would allow for it to keep on accumulating. The idea is that it needed to be distinguishable as well as reversible, and it needed to self-support itself to not put more load on the walls. And since it's steel, it could also reinforce the towers and walls itself with design choices. And there are some of the functions that I imagined this structure having is it could be just hold temporary activities like exhibitions. It could be just a viewing tower for people to just walk over the wall and watch the silhouette of Istanbul. It can be a store, cafe, and these functions are actually already exist within the area itself. So it is really possible and imaginable. And here's another model that I did. It was also a material focused. It's a different area of the wall. This one was used as a parking lot, actually. And I continued the wall structure with a steel framework to make its presence more visible and maybe create more public life inside this area. And I didn't make I didn't make this up. I actually traced the wall itself, and I was imagining it actually growing longer, but it's just the area that I did the model of. And actually, that is all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Wow, that was fantastic. I'm adding hearts too.
Thank you. I think that was a lot, and I tried to make it quick because it was like a lot of information, but hopefully I made justice. Oh, thank you.
No. All right, thank you. Corey, can you go next?
Actually, is it possible I could go next?
Sure. Oh, you found a place. Go.
Is it cool, Corey?
No worries. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just gotta head out soon. Can you all see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. Hello everyone. My name is Rubelcy Herrera. Graduated last year in architecture. And my presentation is called Architecture Stands. It's an elaborate handbook of embodied practice and towards a post-cognitivist pedagogy. And so kind of seeing the relationship of how architecture was practiced at its inception and where it is today, and kind of thinking critically and how we could see possibly another evolution or just kind of reconsider what's going on in the institutions, to see how other practices could be beneficial from the knowledge that is kind of being lost. So kind of the historical relationships back then, we seen this very, very beautiful relationship between the architect and the labor. And so back then, where we'd see craftsmen or masonry people, um, or even painters and sculptors, we would see that they would have these elaborate ideas and they were able to execute on them. And so I would like to call it the knowledge of knowing, which is abstract knowledge, and the embodied knowledge, which is, the actions, the labor. And so we would see, very complicated forms of drawing, such as like the stereopatry traits, where they develop like these very complex wood structures, and they would use very complex drawings, as you guys kind of could see in Figure 1.3, how that could translate into a actual would study or implement it within a building. And so the action of knowing how to make something and knowing how to design it are two very fundamental, important relationships that create architecture and what we know today. And so in today's standards, we actually see like this huge rift between abstract knowledge and the embodied knowledge, which is the labor. And so the reason for that was through like industrialization. We started seeing a lot of cut out of the craftsmanship. We also started seeing a lot of these places like art guilds and etc. to slowly close down because no one wanted to buy their services, as well as we started seeing this new interest shift towards modernism, which is a more of a cut towards simplicity. So we started seeing a lot of different architecture that kind of takes away detail and ordinance. And we also seen corporatism, which really impacted architecture today, which is kind of this idea of prefabrication and Fordism, which is which is kind of assembly units and really, really just taking us away from, the practice of building the materials. And then we also started seeing early neoliberalism, which is kind of this push towards luxury and also a demonstration of power, where this idea of forcing the labor to be hidden and um, the person who is kind of exalting the power is kind of away from the labor. And so that's what we start seeing and imagining the the idea of an architect where it's like they only have a pen in the hand and kind of in front of an art board, doing all these complicated drawings, but yet we don't have the conversation of how the laborers, the construction workers, the masonries, the people who are making these things and putting them together, they're not seen within the office, or they're not really talked about within architecture. And so I thought this was a really interesting relationship because I was getting involved within different forms of bodily movement, like dancing and mixed martial arts and boxing. And what I found was it also had something very similar to architecture. It has like very ancient origins, like their origins of like most of these combat sports have like a huge tradition of like self-mastery and also understanding the body. We could start seeing how it also was very huge and influence in today, where there's been use of like films of people such as Bruce Lee, Karate Kid, that are inspiring young people to learn how to use their body, and also this interesting globalization of like mixed martial arts and other forms of martial arts. So now this embodied knowledge could also be widespread. And so we could see the traditional origins of like the movements, the body, and understanding how the motions work with today's understanding using very technical and choreographed movement. And so um, it was interesting because why is this important? Well, we have to understand that our body is also a form of perception of the world. The way that we interact with a piece of architecture or sculpture or anything helps us understand a particular experience, and also helps us reawaken what can we like reimagine the experience of the architecture. So like how can our abstract knowledge, but also our embodied knowledge can come together and create something possibly new. And so what I was interested in is like, what if architecture could also have this re interesting of rekindling of understanding like spatial tolerance through like other disciplines? And so what I mean by spatial tolerance is it's like, how can I understand the room that I'm in, and like how can I understand it and have a more sensitivity towards it, using other forms and trying to figure out how can we use the abstract knowledge and the embodied knowledge and trying to bring them back into one rather than trying to keep them separate, which is one of the things that I really pushed in today's pedagogy, where we don't really see this n not necessity, but this push towards understanding that craftsmanship. And so the way that I kind of went about it was I did a demonstration of it with my professors on a boxing ring that I built. And so I'll show you guys a video of it, and to just show you the demonstration of how I was able to communicate this idea, because it's one difference between me telling you and then you seeing it and doing it yourself. Everyone to their abstract version of the novel is throw a punch. Yeah, that's that, right? Everyone try that real quick. Or punch. Okay, interesting, right? So what if I told you your abstract understanding of a punch isn't the full embodied understanding of what a punch is? And so what I mean by that is I want you to make a quick outline, and I want you to close out like this. Okay. And now what I want you to do is I want you to lift that back load of the heel a little bit more, right? And I want you to push it off the ground. See that? Okay. And then what I want you to do is I want you to sway your hip in front of yourself. You can see that. Yeah, you move it up like salsa. Yeah. See that? And then what you do is I want you to connect this back foot that you're lifting into the lat area. So as you're pushing through the hip, you turn the shoulder. See that?
Martian.
And then now what I want you to do is I want you to have your hand in pronate.
You just want to say hi.
And I
Oh,
want you to
Martian.
put that back foot, phonetically link all
2 minutes,
Fun.
Rubelcy.
to that concept. And then you whip it back. Just stop it, bang it. Like bang it.
Pardon? Watch some things in animal mode. There's some that drier. Those are the things that take longer. These are almost dry.
Um, oops. Can you guys see the screen, or do you also see my desktop?
No.
Okay. Um, and so the video was also kind of demonstrating like how can we understand the body using certain biomechanics. And one of the reasons why I used like this simple method was to kind of just rethink like what else is possible if we just have a better understanding of the body, and how else we could just like read a architecture plan and see how that intimacy is with like the craft and building it. And so during my presentation I also had these pamphlets and I gave them out and I told them like flip through it and just try to imagine yourself picking up this 2x4 or like drilling this thing into this piece of wood, and see how that relationship is possibly could be better understood if you just had the experience of doing it and learning how to be more efficient, etc. So similar with like how we could draw it and understand it at an intimacy, like um just reevaluating it. And so I kind of just wanted to like leave you guys off with this quote. It says that I can, of course, take a mental bird's eye view of a flat, visualize it, or draw a plan of it on paper. But in that case, too, I could not grasp the unity of the object without mediation of the bodily experience. For what I call a plan is only a more comprehensive perspective. It is the flat to see from above, and the fact that I am able to draw it together in it all habitual perspective is depending on me knowing that one and the same embodied subject can view successively from various positions. All right, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rubelcy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Corey, for being flexible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate it. I really gotta head out. I'll join back soon. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Bye.
So I can go ahead and share. All right, can everyone see the presentation and hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So hi, my name is Corey Watanabe, and I titled this presentation "A Return to Slowness" because in kind of putting together these slides and reflecting on my thesis almost 2 years ago, I kind of recalled the importance of slowness to my own creative process and the importance of kind of reconnecting to that. I feel like, especially when you're kind of working in a fast-paced design office a lot of the time, and I'm sure y'all are very familiar with that. And so kind of the ability to kind of step out and step back a bit. So a bit about myself. I'm a RISD MLA, Master's in Landscape Architecture grad from class of 2024. And currently work at Agency Landscape and Planning in Cambridge, Mass. And I'm a teaching fellow with my department. So I'm at RISD. We'll be at RISD every Wednesday in the spring teaching a seminar over there. Outside of that, I'm also a multimedia artist, primarily working at the intersection between people and nature. Feel that sort of experience has led me to kind of believe in this world in constant flux where both human and non-human systems are in this sort of space of entanglement, evolution, constantly shaping and evolving one another, which became a sort of key principle to my thesis, A New Grounding. My thesis began with a sort of question relating histories of xenophobia to the ways in which we perceive and understand invasive plants. To the left is an image of Hart Mountain internment camp, a landscape my grandmother was incarcerated in during World War II. And to the right is an image of the New Jersey Meadowlands, which is a landscape that was once a rich salt marsh and was later consumed by a plant known as Phragmites australis. So it's a sort of golden wheat-looking plant. And in kind of exploring my own heritage, I began to kind of question this idea of invasiveness. And I often recall this one quote from landscape architect Peter Del Tutrici, who said, "The invasive plant is a symptom of environmental degradation, not its cause." And what he means by that is often when an environment responds in such an imbalance, there's often some sort of underlying kind of issue of extraction, pollution, the construction of a highway, for example. And so that was kind of a big question in my brain as I began to move forward in this process. So I ended up picking the RISD farm as my sort of site, specifically because of its intersection it exists at this ecotone or transition point between the quote unquote invasive Phragmites and the native Rhode Island salt marsh. And I was less interested in kind of picking sides, one or the other, and more interested in kind of the gray area, the in between, and was basically curious about how we as people could kind of involve ritual in our lives of kind of engaging in these spaces and then visiting them, drawing them, kind of experiencing them in person in an embodied way, and how kind of reflection on that can allow us to come to terms with its change and evolution. And so I would go to the RISD farm almost every weekend and kind of repeat this sort of ritual. And throughout this process, there were moments of discomfort and loss, solitude and awe. There's new growth and stillness, as well as, moments of camaraderie and reflection. And I began to collect these moments and through drawing, sketching, photography, and began to sort of build a language and kind of through my own body and senses and how I was interpreting the space. And this led to a lot of sort of making. To the left, I began to sort of do a lot of sketching and storyboarding of these embodied rituals in this landscape, and how when they interact or receive it. And then to the right, I also began to pick up some more slow forms of making, like paper making, for example, here. And I was doing this processing the Phragmite, and kind of building a relationship with that plant in that way as well. And yeah, it kind of led this sort of nebula of experiences, and I began to storyboard them and sketch them and make, and they all kind of began to sit themselves in this diagram I call the mandala, which is this sort of spiritual map, which took the kind of the cyclical growth cycle of the Phragmites and the seasons, the tides, began to tie in the sort of healing process that people go through in sort of experiencing and loss and embracing change, and kind of reiterate on this and develop this diagram, which became the sort of nucleus to my thesis, which is this is a kind of a more polished version of it, but could be definitely iterated on more. But again, right, it was this sort of layering of all these different kind of systems that were both on site and observed, as well as like experienced through my own emotions. And then the design itself was this kind of series of rituals that occur through the seasons, and kind of involving a sort of embodied action in place, that allows to kind of come to terms with the way it changes, the way our ecosystem evolves and changes. This is a series of sort of abstract models that I was working on. I was using the Phragmite paper in here, actually, and that sort of began to visualize how we may kind of interact with this landscape and kind of reflect and shape it, in response to kind of our own kind of emotional cycle, and also kind of observe and understand its own ebbs and flows. And yeah, I haven't time to kind of go through all of them, but I did a lot of sort of making throughout this process of creating sort of ritual artifacts. This is kind of the flux altar to sort of tribute to the idea of a dynamic ecosystem and change. There's the Phragmite lantern, and down here I'm calling it a sort of ghost map of the ghost forest. All of these are sort of embodied ways of making, inspired by this landscape. I also began to visualize a lot of moments throughout kind of this ritual process. There were moments more mourning and loss, as well as celebration and joy. And to kind of close out, I wanted to read an excerpt from an article I recently published, which correlated my own, and speak to the specific ritual that happens sort of during the middle of the seasonal process called the ritual of meander, in which it's this sort of roller coaster of emotions in which you kind of walk into the abyss of the Phragmite and kind of go through that sort of process of coming to terms with yourself and your own body in the landscape. I remember the sense of fear I felt within. Today I would attempt the ritual of the meander, a mental and spiritual exercise in which I enter into the unknown abyss of the Phragmite australis. I could not see in any direction, ahead the dense culms of the Phragmite, behind a remnant path carved through the ghost forest. I could not see in any direction. Anxious apprehension built up from within. As I walked forward, the culms crackled and snapped beneath my feet. They began to sink deeper into the soft mud as salt water spilled into my boots. I was surrounded, with no recollection of how far I've come or where I was going. In an exercise of faith, I stood by my gaman to propel me into the unknown. From fear and uncertainty to discomfort and courage, and even joy, my meander brought me through an emotional transformation. In its final moments, I remember laying out in the field, eyes towards the sky in the state of inner peace. And this is a sort of aerial view of my journey through that Phragmites field.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, that about closes out my presentation. I wanted to kind of share my own contact information, as well as a link to my Instagram, where you can kind of get a where it has a link to the full thesis book of this work if you're interested in kind of digging into it more, as well as a link to the article. And I'll be kind of posting new iterations of how this work has evolved since then. But yeah, I appreciate the time to share this with you all. And thanks to Shiva and Rubelcy and the team for having me on.
Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. All
Hi.
right.
I was going to ask if I can go next.
Sure.
Okay,
That's
it's
Josh,
just my
right?
school is closing. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just share my screen. Okay. Okay. Maybe. All right. Hi. So my project is titled Intangible, and it explores the relationship between the grounded and the ethereal. So just about myself, throughout my time at RISD, I sort of started exploring the medium of digital art, and I created this method of layering images on top of each other. And also at my time at RISD, I became really interested in the themes of the grounded and ethereal, which I call the tangible and intangible. So my thesis explores both, and I say that groundness refers to what is rough, coarse, rigid, heavy, rocky, layered, and earthy, like the artwork on the left. And these traits represent the physical world, which is weighted in reality that could be seen and touched. In contrast, ethereality is light, illuminating, airy, translucent, delicate, dreamy, and magical. And this symbolizes the ungrounded, like floating souls and boundless dreams in afterlife. So it's really interesting in these concepts of real physical spaces that we experience, and then imaginary spaces that we can't actually see. So I represented them using rocky textures in my artwork, as well as really ethereal imagery. And throughout my thesis, I really embraced my three disciplines, which I'm pursuing after RISD as well, which is architecture, fashion, and digital art. During my studies, I really only had time to work on my architecture projects because the studio is so intensive. But I really had an interest in fashion, and I actually started making digital art in lectures at the BEB. So I finally had the chance to synthesize all three together. And for my project, I chose the human as the subject, or actually the site, because humans exist at the intersection of groundness and ethereality, as the physical body acts as a vessel for an intangible life force, thus being an ideal site for investigation. And something that I noted was that fashion is actually the most grounded out of the three disciplines, as it's concentrated in developing physical garments, while architecture is sort of in the middle between groundness and ethereality, as it's focused on developing structures and thinking of invisible spaces. And then digital art is the most ethereal, as the image is created in a non-physical realm, like a computer. And then through the making process and three final looks, this project examines how the disciplines can transform one another. So I was really interested in creating three looks for my project, but also really documenting the making process and how the three disciplines could interact with one another. So for my first process, I took the ethereal artwork and I created petals out of them, and I printed them on translucent paper. And then I started experimenting with bending the petals as well as layering the petals to see how the image would transform. Thus, like actually working with the material would change or transform the image. And then I started developing prototypes for how to layer the petals on top of each other, as well as creating a metal wireframe. So it was very similar to sort of the models we would make in architecture, but I was exploring how it could interact with the body. And then finally, for the process of my first look, I created these connectors, which I modeled, prototyped many times, and then 3D printed that would attach the actual translucent petals to the wiring system. So in the first half of my thesis, I developed this prototype, which was the top, or I really don't even have a term to describe the piece. It's just maybe something that's wearable. And it was created using metal wires as well as the translucent petals. And then in the second half of my thesis, I continued this process and I developed my first look. So I changed the wires to acrylic rods, and this piece is really supposed to imagine the ethereal artwork that I showed in the beginning of the presentation in a physical space, and seeing what digital art can be in something that we can actually physically interact with. So I was actually looking at the details of the artwork and the flowing and movements to create this, and yeah. And then these are some images as well, and it's almost looking like the petals are swirling around the body, as if the image is like is actually taking up space. And then for the second process that I developed, I took the grounded artwork, or the really rocky image, and I vectorized it to get all of the textures and lines. And then I used certain segments of the artwork to actually develop molds. And I laser cut sheets of acrylic with the patterns. And then I experimented with pouring a non-toxic resin mixture on top of the molds. And I was planning to use it as an actual fabric. And then I eventually actually created a scale figure of a human. It was 1/32 inch equals a foot, so it's actually to scale of a person. And then I pinned on just small pieces of the mixture that I created, or the material, to just test different shapes and like how it would wrap around the body. So I used a process of model making in architecture to actually create a garment. And then finally, when I had these panels that I created, I layered them and glued them together using the same material. And then this was or these were the samples that I created initially of the fabric. And actually you can see that the height difference actually creates a difference in coloration, which I really liked, because it was quite similar to the artwork, where you can see variations in color. And also it's like, it looks very ethereal just from the lighting and how light and flowy it appears. So this was my second look, which was the top and the skirt made of this material that I developed. And this look was really in the center of like grounded and ethereal, or tangible and intangible, and that it's really rocky texture, but at the same time the material is translucent and really light. And these are some close-ups. And then for my third look, I took the same artwork, the rough and grounded one, and I actually had it, or I digitally printed it on this mesh fabric. So in these images, it looks like really solid, but actually what's really interesting is when the fabric isn't in contact with other clothes, or it's a bit further from the body, that it becomes translucent. So the image is transforming because of the material. Yeah. And then, so these were all three looks as well as the two artworks. And then I really thought about the curation. Yeah. So just the last thing, I really thought about the curation of this project. So we all presented, I forgot the name, but it was the gallery space up the hill by the freshman dorms. And I had the like oval room. So like my project was the only one in this space, and I really curated it for people to walk around and see the entire process of making, and each individual look. And then we had each of my models were standing by their sort of like station or the images that represented their look. And I individually presented each look and the processes that I learned and made. And it's been a really great journey. I felt like I was really able to embrace my interests and pursue like how architecture, fashion, and digital art could interact with one another. And now that I'm studying fashion, I'm able to continue that in my journey. And I often get asked like why I switched to fashion, but I'm actually interested in practicing architecture and fashion and digital art. So I'm just really happy with continuing this. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have anybody who has not presented?
I think I'm the last.
Okay, Rim, you're on.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see my screen really well? Okay, gotcha. So I'm Rim. I graduated from Interior Architecture, Master of Interior Architecture. And today I'm going to talk about my thesis that I finished last year. It's called A Foundation of Belonging, which is connecting immigrant and refugee spaces. So from the other studios project, I found out that there's like almost 60 ethnic social clubs scattered around in Rhode Island. And ethnic social clubs are a community hub that played a vital role in supporting a first-generation immigrants to successfully integrate it into American society. And these are the 60 ethnic social clubs scattered around Rhode Island. And there's a paradigm shift because after the first generation immigrants settled down, they no longer need the kind of community center, because the reason they need, it's like after they came into the States, they need some community, a connection to get a job, to get a settlement, to get some houses. So that's how they formed a little bit of like small centers scattered around the Rhode Island. But after the generational shifts, intermarriage, and broader infrastructural developments, they no longer need it. So most of the centers are end up as a restaurant, bar, usually like neighborhood dive bars, or some like event hall for someone's birthday. So it's not like that actively using it. Sometimes it's used as like temporarily homeless shelter. And after I found this, I kind of questioned myself. This place must slow erasure to be only outcome? Or could there be an architecture intervention that can bridge the past, present, and future? So I narrowed down the sites to the Pawtucket area because there's more in Providence because there's a city center, but I think that Pawtucket area has more potential because of the proportion of people who are immigrated there, and also some like refugee populations. So I found that Pawtucket area is interested. And these are the 12 ethnic social clubs in Pawtucket area. They usually use it as event hall, restaurant, bar, sometimes classes. But but they vary by the size. Sometimes they're like 16,000 square feet, but they're small. Sometimes they can be small as 5,000 square feet. They're really varied, but the architectural styles are kind of similar, really just bland, dull, like simple building, because of course it's hard to build a fancy community spaces back in the days. And for this project, I tried to, my concept is putting the additive values for the refugees, because I still really cherish the memory and history that building has, and I don't want it to just erase all the function that they currently has. And also the concept of migrants, they used to be first generation immigrants, but now I think the migrants called demonstrated as refugees. So I wanted to integrate refugees community center right next to, or like really close to, the existing ethnic social club, so that ethnic social club can be like more active through more introduce of the people. Also, the refugees can find some of their sanctuaries to communicate with the existing community. And with these additive values, this is gonna be the community like neighborhood hub for the small neighborhoods, not only the one big center in the middle, so that it can has a role as a nodal center to each neighborhood. And for the programming wise, I wanted to maintain the existing ethnic social club functions, but add two different refugee functions, which is social integrating programs and fundamental programs. So fundamental programs are the programs that they need, like a daycare center, healthcare center. But I wanted to integrate some social interactive programs so that existing community and the new people coming in can be integrate and communicate to each other. For the development, I wanted to create some new architectural thresholds, which is creating the new space in the beginning of the spaces so that people need to go through the spaces. And intersection is putting space in between the existing space and new spaces so that it can like connect it really well. And in between, it's creating a path between it so that people can introduce through the path. And flexibility, it's the space in the middle can be flexibility can be part of existing or the new one. And shell, it's introducing some architectural shells that's putting above the existing building so that it can be integrated as one whole building. And wanted to introduce the peeling geometry so that it can show the gradual introduction of the both sides. And this is a diagram of how the new space can be integrated with the existing building through the peeling off geometry. And for the application, among the 12 sites, I select the 3 sites among the size of small, medium, large. And the small site, which is 3,000 square footage, it's a 1-story building, and it's used as a bar right now. And wanted to introduce the horizontal extension right next to it and use the architectural thresholds of flexibility. And the upper wall system in here can be open and closed flexibly so that the middle ground can be used for one event in the refugee center part, or either the existing part, or that can be the pathway to connect the both. And this is drawings of how the existing building and a new intervention can be integrated together. And this is a view from the existing one to the new addition of the building, which is function as a community kitchen. And this is a physical model of existing building and the new addition. And the size medium is 14,000 square footage building, which currently operated as an event hall, restaurant, and bar, and wanted to introduce the horizontal extension and architectural thresholds in between. And the gradual transition of material is the concept of this building. So existing building has red bricks of material, and wanted to introduce that to the new part so that it can be gradually like connected to each other. And this is how the connection of the edited part and the existing part will look. And this is a view from the inside of the addition, which can be a path of between this 2 buildings. And this is a physical model. And the last one is a large size of one of this, I think, social clubs. And I wanted to introduce the vertical extension which can be extended to the shell type of architectural thresholds. And then in this site, I wanted to introduce the facade of collective planting, using the curvature of the facades that people who are already existing in the community and people like refugees who newly come into this building can like create the community while building this building with planting together. And this is going to be the view of how the additive values can be added to the existing building and stretch it out to the entrance part. And this is one of the view of the garden area of the new addition. And this is a physical model of how this existing building can like have a new addition on the top of it. And the point of this project was showing the methodology of how that new additive value can be introduced on the existing building so that it can communicate together and it can like merge together like smoothly. So that I built some physical model about like how to show like how this curvature can be introduced to types of spaces together. And for the conclusion, I wanted to see and give the opportunity from this thesis to spread it around the whole United States so that all the ethnic social clubs in the United States can be a hub on the neighborhood so that newcomers or the existing immigrants can be like create the community together. Thank you so much. This is my thesis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Definitely. I realize now what I really miss about RISD is everyone else's ideas. When you have a crit, this is fantastic. We have time to ask questions of our presenters or of each other. Is there anybody want to make a comment or a question? Odell, are you asking to say something?
Actually, this is the first time I participated in this kind of process, but I have to say that I see an evolution in the type of quality and ideas that have been shared, and they're all different. I was particularly impressed with Rubelcy's and Corey's presentations, which in the scheme are going from traditional to organic in their development of their design concepts. And I found them very, very fascinating ideas. I would have loved to have been in the studio as they progressed. Josh's presentation, going from architecture to fashion, I have to say, and I'll just make this very, very brief. Josh's presentation, which went from architecture to fashion, and I see the connection right away, and it has to do with people in space and what really makes a high fashion look. Is it the dress and the designer, or is it the space that they're in conjunction with the dress that's being worn and the designer that designed it? It's an interesting kind of contemplation. And I believe it was Corey that integrated the martial arts piece.
Oh, that's Rubelcy.
Oh, that was Rubelcy. And that's why, okay, that was the first one. The reason is I taught martial arts at RISD. In fact, I only taught female students how to defend themselves my senior year. But I practiced and studied the martial arts kind of my entire life. So I kind of get the connection. And I kind of, I would just have liked to have seen in depth the process. Okay, I'm good. That's it. I'm good. But thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, sir.
I think that these presentations did make us want to learn more and start creating our own intellectual and visual responses to these. that might be an interesting shared project too. Any other comments? Questions of our?
I'd like to just put a thought out there. Some presentations that struck me. Is it Nur you go by? Yeah, that was a beautiful presentation. Really, really beautiful work. And Corey as well. And I'm biased. We do work on regenerative design, like we do ecological work as a part of a design studio. So we're very focused on that. And so as a part of the foundation, the Michael Singer Foundation, we're also looking for upcoming work that's working on ecological regeneration within urban environments. Rim, the work that you just shared actually with the green walls, as a part of that, we have a very embryonic study that we're looking at to try to see if we can create dual layer systems just to help shade buildings, just to reduce, down here in South Florida, a west facade is like the worst. And so to see if we can create a very simple growing system that is pretty self-sustaining to actually help cool these facades. And it reminded me of that study. And Nara, in terms of your work, you mentioned some seawalls at the beginning. We do a lot of work in regenerative seawalls and trying to get mangroves and oysters to grow along those walls. So thinking about historic infrastructure and how that could possibly relate to, because generally they won't let us touch anything that's even remotely historic in the United States. But the living things grow on them nonetheless. So it's just an interesting, set of components that I'm hearing from the different projects. And then Corey, in terms of your work, I'd be very curious to see how that changes and evolves over time into actual, physical manifestations of something. I don't know what it is, but I think I studied a lot of work on Phragmites, amazing cleaning potential of a largely invasive plant, but actually, in a lot of places, it's not invasive. It's native to some places, right? And it's actually an amazing cleaning machine. And we do a lot of work with plants that clean water. So just to say, the reason why I'm of interest is if at any point in time, anyone on this call or anyone starts to get involved in design work that begins to use ecological systems or regenerative systems to start impacting specifically urban environments, but we're open to, we have a farm in Vermont, so we're open to rural environments, but where they actually begin to do work to actually remediate a condition through innovative design. That's like what we're focused on and what we can fund. So I'm just putting that out there. It is a foundation. We do have funding. We are always going to be looking for collaborators to do this type of work. And all three of you presented work that I could imagine in a future somehow moving in that direction if that was something you were interested in. Or again, a colleague that's interested in doing some sort of work like that. And I do follow some of the RISD students doing some floating wetlands. They're doing some oyster bed planters and things like that. And I'm remiss in not reaching out to the professors, but just wanted to put that out there for the future. I'll put something in the chat in terms of our information, but thank you very much for sharing. It's really beautiful work.
Thank you so much for participating. I have time for one more comment, call, question. Anybody? Scott, do I see you leaning forward to say something? Just kudos for the bravery to present to a nationwide audience here, and to our last year's grads and one from the year before. And I think what my takeaway is that RISD still has variety of outcome, that everybody, we see a lot of portfolios in my firm, and you can often tell what school they went to because the work all looks the same. And I was worried that when in my day everything was drawn by hand and colored by hand and etc. And I was worried that the digital world would take away a little more of the originality and that a hand can give. So I'm delighted to see your work. And Nora, that could have been one of my projects in school, except that you presented much better. It was fantastic. And all of you are fantastic. But that one really reminded me of some of my student work. And Jim was here earlier, but I don't see him now. But he taught a lot of us from the old days. Yes, exactly. I agree. So thank you so much. We hope you'll participate next time. We're trying to do this quarterly and get people together. And if you have any ideas, feel free to email any of us. Throw something in the chat now if you don't want to make an email, that's fine too. And stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.